wondered why that bargain brand spaghetti turns to mush before your sauce even gets warm? It's not your cooking, it's the grain. Most cheap brands cut corners on the protein-rich durum semolina that keeps the pasta firm and sauce ready. When factories swap it for lower-grade blends, you get noodles that snap, stick, and sag in minutes. Today, we'll walk straight into the production line to see how one ingredient, just 12% protein versus 15%, separates premium pasta from the soggy stuff hiding in your pantry. But first, do hit the subscribe button. Why does one spaghetti brand stay firm while another melts in colander? You might think that it's about cooking time or salt, but the real answer starts long before you turn on the stove. Every line of pasta begins with wheat. Lots of it, but not all wheat gets treated the same way. Factories choose between types that look similar on paper, but behave like different species once they hit boiling water. Durum wheat sits at the top of that hierarchy. It's hard, dense, and packed with protein, the structural backbone of a good pasta. If wheat were metal, durum would be steel, strong, shiny, and built to last. When milled, it forms semolina, a coarse golden flour with tiny glassy granules that catch light and hold shape. That color isn't just pretty, it's a signature of quality. In contrast, soft wheat flour looks pale and loose, like powdered dust. It feels almost weightless, and that weakness carries through in cooking. Here's where the quiet swap happens. Many budget factories mix durum with regular soft wheat flour to cut cost. Legally, they can still call it semolina pasta in some markets, even if the ratio heavily favors the cheaper grain. Those words on the label don't always translate to what's inside the bag. Shoppers see rustic Italian imagery on the box and assume quality, not realizing the protein count beneath the print line tells a completely different story. That 12 to 15% protein range is the sweet spot. Below that, you lose the strong gluten network that keeps spaghetti firm and springy. It's that network that grips sauce instead of letting it slide off like water on wax paper. Without it, noodles behave more like steamed dough, swollen, flimsy, and ready to collapse. It's the food version of drywall tape made of tissue paper. Put stress on it and everything falls apart. Low protein blends don't just ruin texture, they ruin timing. Instead of 10 stable minutes in boiling water, they hit a breaking point fast. You can drain the pot, stir once, and the shape starts shedding. The sauce pools underneath instead of coating the strands. What ends up on the plate is edible, sure, but limp and lifeless. Multiply that across a million dinner tables, and that tiny wheat choice at the factory turns into a global waste problem. Pasta tossed because it just doesn't hold up. Factories that stick with pure durum semolina know this. They pay more per kilo, but it's an investment in reputation. Every batch brings consistent color, grid texture, and a taste that actually stands up to the heat. For them, it's not just about branding, it's physics. Protein equals structure. You can almost read it in the hue. Bright yellow for integrity, chalky white for shortcuts. Labels that spell 100% durum wheat semolina usually back it up. So even when the right grain makes it into the mix, there's still one question left. How do factories keep that delicate structure intact once water meets flour? What actually happens between flour and noodle shape that could ruin an entire batch before it even reaches the drying racks? The answer hides in a stage that doesn't look dramatic but makes or breaks every strand: mixing and hydration. This is where semolina meets water at about a third of its total weight. On paper, that sounds easy. In a factory, it's anything but easy. The balance between movement, moisture, and temperature decides whether you get strong, elastic dough, or weak, crumbly paste. In cheaper operations, this step is usually rushed. The mixers spin too fast or too short, chasing speed instead of structure. They skip proper temperature control, so the dough warms unevenly. Some parts sticky, others dry and grainy. That uneven hydration tears the gluten network before it ever builds strength. Once you destroy that structure, no amount of drying or shaping will put it back together. It's like undercooked cement. It looks fine at first, but touch it later and the cracks show. Quality-focused mills treat mixing more like science than cooking. They keep everything below a tight temperature window, around the warmth of a summer day, steady and mild, so the semolina proteins can align and form an elastic matrix. That 10 to 20 minutes in the mixer might look slow, but it gives every grain just enough time to absorb water evenly. The resulting dough feels dense but pliable, stretching instead of crumbling. And when that dough passes through the extruder, it can take the pressure without tearing. And that means consistent spaghetti, from the first strand to the last. When the rush jobs skip this discipline, you start seeing the damage later. Cracks on the surface, rough spots that break in boiling water, spongy texture that never feels quite cooked. You might even see microscopic air pockets forming inside the noodles. That's moisture trapped where it doesn't belong. It's the same logic as pouring boiling water on instant oats. The outside softens instantly, while the inside stays raw. The dough acts the same way, half hydrated, half starved, all inconsistent. Once the dough holds together, it's forced through dies to take shape. Those dies decide how the pasta grips sauce later on. Bronze dies carve through the dough with enough friction to leave a faint roughness. That rough surface becomes microscopic valleys that catch sauce and flavor. It's subtle, but it changes everything about how the meal feels on a fork. Producing with bronze tools costs more and slows output, but the payoff is texture that works in your flavor. The cheaper Teflon dies, smooth and slick, make the surface too perfect. The result shines in the package and then sends soft sliding off in the pan. That right mix and die choice builds a line of defense around the protein network you paid for. Every shortcut before or after only takes away from it. So, once that structure is finally stable, the real challenge begins. How do factories preserve that strength for months on a shelf without losing the bite? If the dough is already shaped and strong, why does factory drying take hours, or sometimes days for the good stuff? On the surface, it looks like a waiting game, but drying is where all that careful work either locks in or collapses. It's the most silent phase on the floor, yet the only one that dictates everything, from shelf life to chew. Mess with it, and your pasta's future is sealed before it even hits the pot. Here's where the story slows down. The silent heart of the factory. Nothing moves fast now. Rows of noodles hang still, air circulating around them like a quiet storm. The goal is to draw that moisture down to about 12%, dry enough to store safely, but not so brittle that it shatters. That process sounds simple until you realize what's at stake. Pour water too fast and internal pressure builds, cracking the surface. Leave it too damp and microbes get a head start. Balanced drying is the reason that pasta can live quietly in your cupboard for months and still taste freshly made when boiled. Here's where the cheaper plants cut corners. To save time, they crank up the heat and blast air through the tunnels. It looks efficient, but the outer layer hardens within minutes while the core stays wet. That trapped water tries to escape later, splitting the noodle from the inside. It's the kind of flaw that you'll never see until your dinner falls apart. The result is pasta that looks fine in the package, but falls apart after cooking. You've probably seen it, half the strands breaking, the rest sticking together in clumps. That's not bad luck, and that's heat abuse. Top producers do the opposite. They slow everything down. Traditional or high-end facilities dry pasta under mild temperatures that stay below about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, mimicking the calm conditions of natural air drying. The process can last a full day or more because moisture needs time to migrate evenly from the center out. That gradual balance keeps the gluten structure elastic instead of glassy, giving spaghetti its smooth snap and steady bite. The color stays a deep golden hue instead of bleaching to dull beige. Flavor holds too because the natural pigments in the semolina survive the gentle heat. Think of it the way that you think about bread. A slow-baked loaf holds its shape and crust while a microwave bun just steams itself soggy. The chemistry is no different. Heat too fast, flavor dies. That's why small mills still favor multi-stage drying. They start with pre-drying, a short tempering period that stabilizes the surface like a primer coat. It keeps the noodles from warping while the internal water begins to migrate. Only then does the real drying start, with controlled airflow and humidity that shift in steady steps instead of sudden gusts. Even after the moisture hits its target, the job isn't done. Packaging locks in that fragile balance. Some lines go airtight, others flush bags with nitrogen to squeeze out oxygen. Either way, the goal is to stop residual dampness from creeping back. The difference between a firm, sauce-loving noodle and a gummy plateful isn't magic. It's slow, smart drying. So now that you've seen what goes on behind the clean factory walls, how do you spot real quality the next time you're choosing a box off the shelf? Good pasta isn't luck, it's engineering. It starts with the right wheat, mixed just enough and dried slow enough to protect every strand's strength. Your job as a shopper is to check who's doing the real work. Flip the box and look for 100% durum wheat semolina. If it lists anything else, you're paying for shortcuts, not quality. The protein percentage tells the same story. 12 to 15% means firm texture and proper sauce grip. Less than that and you'll get mush. So the next time your pasta holds firm and clings to sauce like it was born for it, you'll know that it wasn't luck. It was craftsmanship, baked into every strand. Like and subscribe to help us keep the spotlight on food's industry's best kept secrets.